his neck. Come on, listen to Catholic crack. Grab the rosary, grab a beer. Come on, listen to Catholic cheer. Not too holy, not too mad. Sharing faith and fun with an Irish Catholic dad.
Welcome to the Holy Joe's podcast, episode 6. 3 Catholic men with years of leadership experience in the Catholic Church give some tips for life and helping us to live life to the full. In this week's episode, Dermot goes from Disney to despair and back again. How are you, boys?
Well, man, how are we?
What an episode last week, Matthew. I know you opened your soul and you it was the first time you've really given your testimony in that environment, but loads of emails, loads of comments about your story and the shining light of your mother in your life. So how was it last week for you sharing your story? Any thoughts or reflections?
I suppose I'm not really that fond of that word testimony. It was just my story. It was just who I am. Probably is the first time that I ever told it. I know I spoke to Dermot later on in the week and we would be in regular contact, and he was saying to me it was the first time that he ever heard it. I have to say there's only really about 3 or 4 people that I would have shared that with in my entire life, but something recently, I suppose in lockdown, I felt there was just something calling me towards sharing it at that stage, so I enjoyed doing it, and People have been lovely, I have to say. Anybody that I've spoken to that has listened to it has the feedback has just been excellent. I've been blessed by some of the compliments that they've paid to me, but especially to my late mother. It was a great tribute to her. So I enjoyed doing it. Certainly did, and I'm looking forward now, I suppose, at this stage. I'm out of the hot seat this week, and I'm looking forward to Dermot getting into the hot seat, so that our listeners can find out a wee bit about Dermot. You know, I have to say, he's not a bad fella, I suppose.
No, I'll have to give him a bit of stick. But Dermot, I'm sure you were deeply moved last week by Matthew's story, because I know I had a wee lump in my throat and everything.
Yeah, I've known Matthew, guts of 10 years now. I know he's an amazing person. He's a great youth minister. He's been an amazing role model for young people, and really, it touched my heart. And you can really deeply see where the root of all that has been, and certainly it's been his mother, Mary. And I feel that Matthew, you paid a great tribute to her to share that with our listeners, on who she was as well. Matthew, just to help me out as well this evening, and you spoke into it there about the feeling that you felt during lockdown about not wanting, but maybe wanting to get that out. Can you tell me a wee bit more about that? Somebody once said to me, if you have that feeling sort of inside you, do you think that's the Holy Spirit? Do you think that was something that was moving in you in these times?
Dermot, I suppose being involved in youth ministry for so long, I know on a number of occasions, especially at pilgrimage time, that it would have been asked by a number of young people to, who are you, or where did you come from, or how come that you're working here? And I would have sketched over that a wee bit and wouldn't have went into too much detail. There was always somebody else. We were always going to listen to amazing speakers, or going to visit enclosed sisters in Fatima, or so many other things. And all I was hearing was all of these great transformation stories, and I didn't feel that I matched up. But as I said, over lockdown, I definitely, I suppose, I've leaned a lot on faith during lockdown. Doing a lot of praying, a lot of reflecting, a lot of thinking, and it was just something that came up even before, I suppose, the podcast. It was just something that I said, right, now is the right time. And maybe I was shackled and shackled by the Irish Church, I'll say, a wee bit, in that I never felt that I could tell what I could tell, because I would have been worried that people would have had a negative negative impression of my mother because she got pregnant and wasn't married, because that was such a big taboo when I was growing up, and I had to deal with that. And it gets me thinking about sort of some of the things within a church context that we people that we condemn today, and gets me thinking a lot deeply about that. And we need to treat everybody equally and treat everybody the same, and worry about our own soul and our own conscience, and not be worrying about other people's.
Matthew, it's a really good point you've made there, just in terms of isolation, who's in the margins, who's left outside the church. I mean, if we're welcoming people, if we're trying to be represented as Christ on earth, like, we're sometimes not doing a good job of it. So definitely another episode. Dermot, I know you want to make a point about podcast reviews and some of the things people have been saying.
This is one of the comments. Not quite the Joe Rogan show, but enjoyable all the same. Keep up the good work, lads. God bless the work. And then another listener, Keelan, said, great podcast. 3 good lads just chatting, having the crack with some great guests. If you want something easy to listen to with a little bit of depth, you've found it here.
Matthew, I'm just wondering, is that Keelan? Remember that young lad? I remember down, what do you call it, part of where Derry Lynn, there was 2 twins, I think Keelan and Killian. One's a doctor and there's one a teacher. I bet it was one of them.
Keelan's a doctor and Killian's a teacher, yeah. It could well be Keelan, Keelan's a good fella.
Matthew maybe paid him to do that comment, maybe.
Well, he's a bit of a legend. He's in the front line with this whole COVID-19. I seen a picture of him. The local parish or GAA club put a picture up of him with all the PPE on, helping people down in, I think it's the Royal, or is it the City?
I suppose now that I think that he's listening, I'll have to say something nice about him. I know he's working up in Belfast at the minute, and I know he's in the front line. He just got married there in September to a lovely wee girl from Belfast, Kerry.
She's really good.
Myself in May, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Keelan is the type. I look at some young people nowadays that say they want to go on to be doctors and they want to do medicine. For me, I could see from day one that Keelan had a real vocation, and that's what I like to see in young people who want to go on to be doctors and to do medicine, that you can see that they genuinely from their heart feel that it is something that they're called to do, and something that they feel that they can make a difference, and something where they can help people when they're at their most weakest and their most vulnerable. And Keelan certainly ticked all of those boxes.
One of the listeners we have in Russia, Mr.
Kieran Harn, yeah.
Kieran, and is Maria his wife?
He's married to Maria, yeah, and they're as mad as hatters, and they're teaching over in Russia, and I would have a fair notion that Kieran could be our Russian listener.
Well, that's my money's on.
I can't figure out who our Iranian listener is, but we have listeners from Russia and we have listeners from Iran. I'm just wondering, do we have any listeners from Craigavon? Now that might be a step too far. But
I think we'll get a listener from North Korea before we get a listener from Craigavon. I think. I mean, all there is good in Craigavon's roundabouts, like Disney or something there.
Well, hold on now a minute, Joe. Hold on. I was in the hot seat last week. I suppose I'm passing the baton this week to young Dermot. Maybe we'll start you off, Dermot, tonight with your story, just by telling us, I suppose, a wee bit about family life growing up and what it was like and growing up in Craigavon and Portadown and trying to be a Catholic and trying to bring that authentic faith that you talk about.
Okay, Matthew and Joe, and to our listeners, thank you for the opportunity to maybe speak into that. I certainly feel it's going to be a hard act to follow after Joe and Matthew, but we all have our own story, and I give thanks to God for just even having the opportunity to speak into this tonight. I know we prayed before our podcast this evening, but I'd just like to pray at this moment in time for the Holy Spirit. And we might just pray, "Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of thy faithful, and killing in the fire of thy love. Send forth thy Spirit, and I shall be created, and I shall renew the face of the earth." This time, to be able to tell my story is sometimes a little bit it's difficult, something outside of my comfort zone. And I suppose I'll start by saying I'm a father to Eva, Grace, and Rosa, and husband to Anya, and I'm a youth minister. Childhood for me, I've grown up, born and reared in Portadown, and I've been blessed to be brought up in a Catholic faith. For me, the ladies in my life have been the biggest inspiration and the biggest help in my faith life. And we always say that the first teachers of the faith are either maybe your grandmother or your mother, and certainly I was lucky to have both of them in my life as well. My granny was someone who instilled faith in the family home. There was always a great prayer life. I suppose as a young fella, I can always remember the rosary was something that was very repetitive in the household and even in prayer. And in a way, it scared me because rhyming off of these prayers, it actually was quite frightening. My mother, typical Irish Catholic mother, I grew up with holy May altars in my bedroom with fresh flowers and different things that were going on as well. And my mother has been an inspiration, and she continues to be a great lady of faith as well. The other lady in my life is Anya, my wife, and I'm very grateful that she came into my life, which we'll talk about maybe romantically in a little bit as well. In the mid-90s in Portadown, I suppose the best way to describe it for me growing up was like a war zone, and we might have been under siege for a few weeks in our lives in the middle of, or the beginning of July, which is always the beginning of sort of summer holidays as well. And that was maybe due to a conflict between, I suppose, the famous Drumcree-Girvahi Road standoff, which was a march that was to go from a Protestant church through a nationalist area to continue an Orange Order march as well. So at that time, the Girvahi Road was actually the third most famous road in the world. Lads, do you know what the other two famous roads would have been?
I would say Pennsylvania Avenue. Is that like White House or something? I've no idea. Go tell me. It's on Fifth Avenue.
Fifth Avenue was one, yeah.
And Trafalgar Square, I don't know, somewhere in London, no. Or that place in Paris.
Yeah, the Champs-Élysées.
Champs-Élysées, is it? Fair play, me.
There you are, and then Girvahi Road came third. What do you think of that, Matthew?
Oh, but I'm just admiring your French there, the both of you there. It was just really the Parisians will be they'll be so impressed. So they will, yeah.
I'm just going to move into maybe, yeah. Go ahead, Matthew.
I was just going to say, Dermot, just taking it back at this stage to, I suppose you grew up in Portadown, and that was an interesting upbringing, and I suppose formed you in many ways. Then the time was to move on. I know you went on to university and you done a business-related degree. Do you want to say maybe tell us a wee bit about that time in your life and about how I suppose the faith bug was biting into you at that stage and what that meant for you?
That was definitely a goal of mine, that I always wanted to travel. I was very self-assured of that. And I suppose, yeah, I just want to talk into university for me was amazing. Social life was great. I think I had 8 hours of university classes per week, and the rest of the time was just socializing. So I really, really enjoyed that. But at that time in my life, I probably fell into, I didn't fall into, there was good people in my course. There was people from the same town I was from. Again, at that stage, there was 2 other students in my course, and they, what you would call, they were recently freeborn Christians. Let's call them that, all right? But yeah, they were amazing folks, and they are a part that have to play in my life as well, because I suppose let's make a laugh about it. They were probably trying to save me. For me, my Catholic faith was there. I continued to go to Mass and different things as well. They involved and tried to get me to go to a thing called the Christian Union. I went along to it a few times, but what was good for Dermot after the Christian Union was the Students' Union as well. So I was definitely getting the best of both worlds. But I always just remember that was a moment in my life where I was saying that, I wanted my Catholic faith to be a wee bit like this. For me at that stage, my teenage life, university life, I suppose Mass just wasn't doing it for me. And I'm not saying that Mass should be about a concert or bells and whistles on it. It just maybe wasn't connecting with me, but I was still strong in my faith. I loved elements of my Catholic faith. So I suppose what brings me on to the next point was that my mother was always a great lady to say that, Dermot, you need to go get experience. You need to go and see the world as well and fly your wings and different things as well. So I remember one of the summers I decided I was going to go to Camp America. I had to go get a passport form signed, and I can always remember at that time I plucked up the courage after Mass one Saturday night, and I went along and asked for the priest to sign the passport form. So boom, I was off to Camp America, enjoyed it. And this was the start of my life to travel as well, and I was loving that. That happened, and I'll come back to that passport story as time goes on. But for me, what next happened was I had an opportunity to go on a placement year, and I got to go work for Walt Disney World in Florida. And
are you serious?
That was just true, Joe. I got to go work for the most powerful mouse in the world, Mickey Mouse.
Brilliant.
It was a really amazing experience, and certainly a place that I knew that you worked hard, but you played harder as well. And I really got to see a lot of America, got to see a lot of the Caribbean and different things as well. But where I lived in Central Florida, now you could have picked anywhere. It was the only chapel in the whole of Central Florida, and that was beside my residence where I lived, which was a gated community, 18 to 30-year-olds, 1,000 young people from all around the world, pool parties every night. Lads, I'll let you use your imagination, but it was just an amazing, amazing experience. But for me, the only chapel in Central Florida was next door to me. And I know from our stories, and I know Matthew's story last week, he got the Mass every Sunday. I'm not going to lie, I did not get the Mass every Sunday, but I did try to get as much as I could. And one of my confession stories was leading up to Easter. I can always remember this was a church that was maintained by the tourists of the area. There was a lot of money went into this church as well. So it was all glass, it was all marble. So I decided that I needed to go to confessions leading up to Holy Week. So I went to confessions, and I ended up walking down this corridor, and I don't have great eyesight, but I opened this glass door and walked down this marble staircase to a sign saying confessions. I went to confession, and I was greeted by the priest, who was sitting on a beanbag. And I was totally freaked out at this stage.
Are you in Walt Disney World, or are you in the church at this stage?
I'm in the church. And the priest says to me, take a seat beside me on another beanbag. So I just sat down on the beanbag. I was totally uncomfortable. And so I just, bless me, Father, for I had sinned, it's been whatever. And he heard my accent, and he just stopped me in mid-flow of me ready to blast out all the sins. And he said, oh my God, you're from Ireland. He says, Ireland needs priests right now. So I hands up, I probably was very disrespectful at that time. I just said to him, thank you very much, Father. This is just a little bit uncomfortable. And I just turned on my heels and walked out.
Dermot, that confession just didn't go the way you wanted it to. And maybe the priest provoked something within you. The Holy Spirit spoke to you. It unsettled you, he was maybe saying you were Holy Joe, but you knew you didn't want to be a priest. Like, what happened next in your story?
After university, I was working for Hilton Hotels. So for me at that stage in my life, at the age of 22, I'd worked for 2 multinational companies. I thought I wanted the best. I was achieving the best. I was being the best. And I suppose for me, that's what society does for a lot of our young people as well.
Listen, Dermot, that's I suppose a lot of people at that stage would say in many ways you were living the dream. Walt Disney, the Hilton Hotels, you were on the road up. The dollar signs and the pound signs probably were starting to appear. So, you're on a very different road. I'm just wondering now, what changed or what moved you to youth ministry then at that stage?
A few years before this, I needed to get the passport signed, and I approached the local curate who was the priest in my parish, and you know that saying, no good deed goes unpunished. Well, this particular priest, and I suppose at this stage, two people in my life that were very inspirational and helped me at this stage of my life was Father Brian White, and also my girlfriend at the time, who her name was Anya, and now my wife. And for me, that was a big part of my life right then, because, as you said, Matthew, I was maybe having the best, I had the best car, I had the best money, I had the best social life, I had the best girl. And that priest approached me and asked me, hey, would you fancy helping me start up a youth group in my local parish? And I said, no, I've no time, Father. I'm working 70, 80 hours a week, no time. So about 6 months later, he approached me and asked me again, would you help me start up this youth group? I have a great idea, but I want somebody to help me with it. And I said, Father, seriously, I don't have time. So he persevered and asked me a third time. And I suppose he must be a good salesperson as well. So he asked me a third time, and I said, sure, why not? So one Friday night, himself and I and a few other young adults decided to meet a group of young people, play a bit of five-a-side, play a bit of volleyball. I suppose for me, and it's very important, is to meet young people where they're at. And that for me was a big turning point in my life, because I really found that as a great release. It connected me back to maybe my youth work days, my cross community days, and just being with and having the excitement of being around young people and actually appreciating what was important in life, and that was giving to others as well. So that time in my life was another invitation, and I suppose for me that inspirational priest in my life gave me an invitation. I suppose he accompanied me, walked with me, and gave me an invitation, and it's, you know, it sort of comes full circle to who I am sort of today and who I'm working for as well. So there was a great course at that time called the Youth Ministry Certificate Program that was done through the Redemptorist, and he had helped to fund me to go on that program, and I really enjoyed it, and I was inspired, and I was coming back to my parish after every module, and I was coming filled with ideas while still working for the hospitality industry at the time. An opportunity came up about 9 years ago to work for the Archdiocese of Armagh, and I haven't looked back. I loved it. I suppose one of the other big influences for me was, I mentioned the other person who was Anya, my wife, and at that stage as well, you know, when I was about 22, she said, let's go to World Youth Day. I goes, no. And then she said, it's in Sydney, Australia. And that was in 2008. And I said, yes, let's go. So for me, I was going for all the wrong reasons. I was going for, you know, the sunny weather, the great climate, and again, for me to enjoy traveling as well. But for me at that stage of my life, it was a brilliant door that opened for me. And from there, I believe that, you know, walking with people and having great experiences on pilgrimage, it's you know, really been the reason to who I am today. And as I said, for the last sort of 9 years, I've worked in youth ministry for the Archdiocese of Armagh. I've loved my role, and with cooperation of searching, I believe that I found my true vocation.
Like subtly, like your wife is, well, I know she wasn't your wife then, but has invited you into the journey of a journey with God, and ultimately a journey together for you. So I just love the way you kind of told the story about Anya in your life, because sometimes God brings people in our path at certain times that are meant to be there, and it's about us too trying to seize the moment. Yeah. And looking back now, I'm sure you can see all the wee God moments in your life.
So look, we've heard a lot of good things and a lot of positive things, but I know, Dermot, things aren't always good, and we're faced with many challenges in life and many difficulties, and thank God we have our faith to get us through them. Maybe you'd like to tell us a wee bit about some of the recent challenges that you faced in your life, if you're happy enough to go down that road with us tonight.
Yeah, I suppose for me it's a challenge to maybe talk into this, and I haven't really spoke too openly about this, but we've talked about joy and the achievements maybe in life and different things as well, and for me, of reasons, I've been probably reflecting on these things as well. And I suppose sometimes we don't think about the greatest challenges that we face. And for me, I suppose the last 3 years of my life have been the most challenging. But there's been some amazing joys that have came through that as well. And what I mean by that, I think really, and it's something that I'd be keen that we can develop on this podcast, but it's the spiritual battles that we have faced and do face and we will face. And crisis will come up for everybody in life. And for me, I suppose, I'll talk into it maybe a little bit as well about how to become a bit more emotionally resilient. But the challenges that I've sort of faced in this last sort of little while, and I try to put it into a bit of a concept, was that, yeah, a loved one of mine, you know, had been battling with mental health for a long period of time. And, you know, I'd been helping that person and trying my best to assist them during their mental health problems as well. But it revealed that there's a lot of huge addiction problems and psychotic episodes and things like that, which are very serious. And I know addiction, you know, faces a lot of families in our country, no matter what that addiction is. But I suppose for me, I am an emotional person, and I talked there about how to become emotionally resilient. For me, I'm a guy that wears my heart on my sleeve. And yeah, I suppose, again, I might be seen as the Holy Joe and the person I thought that could have maybe fixed this loved one's problems. But the more and more I got involved, the more and more I probably became hurt, probably heartbroken. And that's been a big challenge in our lives. That's, you know, there's a time when there's been a mental vulnerability in myself, but I do believe that this loved one is that they're still with us, and they're an amazing person. They're gifted, and I'm there for them always. But there was a time in my life I just had to sort of walk away and make a priority as well for my own family at that time as well. But certainly I felt that I was mentally maybe hurt and broken at that stage of my life as well. Another big hiccup along the way would have been, you know, my own father, as you know, was diagnosed with cancer as well in that time as well, and that's been big for the family and different things as well. And thank God, one of the joys, certainly, and I know Matthew, you certainly were one of the people that introduced me to this special place. I've been able to go to Lourdes over this last sort of 3 years as well, and I was able to go to the baths with my father 2 years ago in Lourdes. And you know, I want to be able to let our listeners know that, you know, miraculous miracles happen every day. I know there's 84, 85 miracles attributed to Our Lady of Lourdes, but miracles happen every day in Lourdes. Healing happens every day in Lourdes. But certainly after that experience my father had in the baths in Lourdes, his cancer has came to a maintenance level, and that's a story that I like to share, because from then the cancer's never grown, and he's under maintenance at this time as well. So thank God for that as well.
Listen, Dermot, I know that was difficult for you there tonight, and I could hear it in your voice. So fair play to you is all that I can say. One thing that I will pick up on is, I suppose I've been quite close to you over the years, and during that time, I know you said that you had to, I suppose, cut off links with your loved one, but I felt it was very much you had done all that you could do at that stage, and you know, you shouldn't beat yourself up about that. Once you've done all you can do, then there was nothing left but to try and let him find himself and let him sort himself out. And that's the reality, I suppose, sometimes when those things happen, you know.
Yeah, it's a hard love, Matthew, and for me as well, you know, yeah, you have to make a choice, and I think that it was a choice as well that he knew we had to make, and he loves me for that, and he loves who I am and what I've done for him as well. So other things that I'd like to maybe speak into, and other challenges that we faced as a family, a spiritual battle that we have faced has been we were expecting our third baby. My wife was 30 weeks pregnant at the time, and it had just turned around Christmas time, and we've 2 girls already, Ava and Grace, and we got them all excited about knowing that Mummy was due to have another baby around in the new year and different things as well, and that was a little surprise for them knowing that around Christmas time as well. So the excitement was good in the family, and just shortly after the turn of the new year, Andy just felt things weren't going well, and for us at that time, the reality was that we had a stillbirth baby, and that was very emotional for us. We were emotionally wrecked. I suppose for my wife, the trauma that she had to go through of 2 days of full labour to give birth to her son. He had all his shapes and makes. He was a gift from God, and we got to spend a bit of time with him, and we named him Micah. It was a name that we loved, and we named him after the prophet Micah, and one of our favourite quotes from the Bible. So Micah was something that happened to us, and he was a gift that was given to us, and he certainly has a very important job to do. He's the closest thing to sainthood. He's with us, and he's with us, looking down on us and supporting us as well. And kids are amazing. And I know over this last few weeks we've shared about how our families might have kept things from us and the culture that we lived in. But for us, we certainly wanted to let the girls know what was happening, especially our eldest daughter, that Mummy was going into hospital, and Mummy wasn't coming home with a baby, and those our children have lifted us during those hard and dark days, and they talk naturally about their brother Micah, and they know that he loves him, and we have a garden that we can go visit every day, for Micah, and the girls are amazing, and they really have helped us get through this time. But for me, I really believe that at that stage, I really needed to grow as a man for the family as well, drop everything and grow those extra few inches for my family and to support my wife in that time as well. So it was a time for me that I was emotionally drained and racked as well, but certainly something that has brought us gifts as well, and has brought us closer as a family. And at the turn of this year, we were very lucky and gifted that we had our third girl, and her name was Rosa, and her name's Rosa, and she's doing really well. She's nearly 5 months old, and we're very, very lucky. We're very, very lucky people, and definitely we're very, very grateful in these times that we have to place our trust in God, and we have to let the Holy Spirit work as well. So for us, definitely it was definitely it's been a very challenging few years, but I certainly feel that we was talking about that emotional resilience, that it's very important that we deal with our feelings, take control of our emotions, and allow those painful feelings to come out as well through support of good friends around us as well, and to allow us to be vulnerable and to say we're vulnerable as well. So that's definitely something that's not a weakness. It certainly has to be seen as something that is part of us as humans, and we all become vulnerable, and it's not a weakness. It can be seen as a strength as well.
Yeah, Dermot, it's a powerful story there, and I'm moved, and I have a bit of a lump with it just listening to you talking through that. And I know we were chatting, you and Matthew, the other night, and we're saying maybe this is something we could mention on the show. And just at that time, you were at Micah's grave, just laying down some flowers and saying a wee prayer. And Micah's with us tonight. Power as well of you as a man sharing the reality for many Irish men is mental health challenges with friends and family, like addiction, like talking about your dad's cancer and his journey in Lourdes and the cancer he contained. Men struggle to talk
about the deep, dark, depressing challenges of life.
And we struggle to talk about it in a way that isn't like over a pint where it's forgotten about, oh, I was drunk last night. No, don't forget about what I said. Like we need to be, like you say, resilient. And please God, some of our listeners out there might have been touched by what you're saying about spending time with their dad, the family member or friend that's struggling with their mental health, just to reach out and, just be there and walk with people through the crap as well as the joy. So really appreciate you telling your story there, and I do think it's a transformative story, because not many people can walk with their cross. It's a challenge. So thank you, Dermot.
Dermot, I just follow on from that. I suppose it takes a man, it takes a real man to tell a story like that, and that's what we're trying to do on this. We're trying to, I suppose, empower men to be real men, in the sense that they're fathers, they're protectors, but they're also in touch with their emotion, and they're in touch with all that's going on around them and with their struggles. So I appreciate that, and I admire you so much for sharing that with our listeners. I know it was a very difficult time for you, and I really admired all along how you stood up and how you handled that as a husband and as a daddy, and God was blessing you at all of those stages, Dermot, with all of those difficulties. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Each day we wake up, is an important day, for all of us. And we must give thanks to God for that. And I'm very thankful for this opportunity, but I'm also very thankful for having a good group of friends and faith friends around you where you can turn to. And I would say that to our listeners as well, that, in times of need and times of struggle, always, be prepared to pick up the phone or meet somebody or speak to a friend and let them know how you're feeling as well. And it's okay not to be okay. And to be there and to show your vulnerability and to show your love and to show your emotions as well.
Listen, lads, it's been a good 3 weeks. I know it probably was prompted by a listener saying, like, who are you three boys? We've all told our stories. We've all had challenges in our lives, but we all have plenty. We are all able to count our blessings as well, and that's good. And we're here. We're trying to do something good, and we're trying to reach out to young men, young dads especially, and help them on their journey. Yeah. And anything that we can do to help them is positive and is good for them. So I think we all have done that with the stories that we've told. So it was World Communications Day 3 Sundays ago, and I think Pope Francis would be very
proud of us, our stories. Bishop Allen had said to us, men, I want you to read the Bible more. And my Bible just happened to open randomly. Sometimes you trust the Holy Spirit when you were talking. And I was reading Matthew 7, verse 7, and it just simply was, ask and it will be given to you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be open for you. And I was thinking just your story, Dermot, like even the crack and banter, you was talking about the priest in the confession saying, yeah, oh, did you not think about the priesthood? Or whether it was Father Brian and Anya maybe inviting you to a youth group or telling you to go to World Youth Day. And even the challenges you've had with your dad with cancer, a friend or family member struggling with mental health and addiction, and the terrible loss you went through, baby Micah now in heaven. Like, with all them things, God is asking, like searching for us, and I really got the sense that God has pursued you for a long time, and He loves you, and He wants you to be with Him. And tonight, I think the challenge that you're leaving us all is about ask God, seek Him, knock the door, and He's just waiting there for us. And let's leave with a challenge there. But like, what would you like our men to know tonight? Like, what's the challenge? Everyone's given a challenge every week. What's the challenge tonight?
Our challenge this week, maybe for our listeners, is to open up about your feelings. And it's okay if you're maybe feeling a little bit under the weather or you need to speak about your feelings, you always have your friends, or you might want to open up to a loved one. It might be your wife. So if you're struggling with your thoughts or your feelings, it's really important that you can open up and to be there for somebody as well, and to talk to them as well. And there's always helplines out there to support you to be able to open up and to talk about your feelings.
Yeah, thank you, Dermot. I just like to, at this stage, maybe just to offer a prayer for all our listeners out there, but especially those that are struggling with mental health. So I'd like to just offer a prayer to Our Lady for strength and for courage for those people, that they will be able to meet that challenge that Dermot has just laid out for them. So we'll remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy aid, or sought thy intercession was left unaided. Inspired with this confidence I fly unto thee, O Virgin, my mother. To you do I come, before you I stand, simple and sorrowful, O Mother of the Word incarnate. Do not despise my petition, but in your clemency hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
If you have any questions, ideas, insights, or contributions you'd like to make to the show, please email us at theholyjoespodcast@gmail.com. That's theholyjoespodcast@gmail.com.